for joining. Welcome to Labster. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy days to learn something new. My name's Kayla. I've been with Labster for about 2.5 years almost. I was one of the first employees in the Boston office. So I've seen us grow over the past couple of years. And today I will be walking you through the Labster platform. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to discuss a few things with you. First off, I want to tell you a little bit more about who we are here at Labster and how we can help your courses. And then, of course, segue into what building Labster into your course looks like. I'm going to turn my video on so you can all see me and I'll say hello. Hello. And with that, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on who we are. So Labster had started as an outreach project at the University of Copenhagen in 2013. Our founder was a PhD student in charge of all of the intro labs, and there was a serious lack of overall student engagement, motivation, and retention of knowledge within his classroom. And the current lab teaching methods were ineffective, expensive, and severely limited due to time and resources. This led him to develop Labster as a way to get the class on the same page and engage students in the theory and techniques that they're learning, and as well as giving you guys, the instructors, an idea of how your students are mastering the material that you need them to. Since that point, we've grown quite a bit. We realized that there are so many different ways students can benefit from simulations, and nearly any real-world scenario can in fact be simulated. We've conquered handling lab accidents and lab safety. We've mastered lab techniques and protocol, and we've given students access to things, concepts, techniques, visualizations that you wouldn't be able to see in the real world. Simulations are a great way for students to try and retry experiments in a safe, cost-effective environment. And these are some of our global partners and universities that we're working with today. I'd love to tell you a little bit more about how a few of our partners are using Labster in their courses. University of Florida, for example, is using Labster in both face-to-face and online courses. And this has allowed them to reduce the cost of experiments, increase access to lab apparatus and experimentation. And overall, they've seen a deeper understanding of content across the board. Ultimately, this has allowed them to expand offerings not only on the ground, but also online, which has opened many doors. And then ASU has implemented Labster into, or one of the instances where they've implemented Labster was an online ecology course to provide access to lab practice for students in an unlimited capacity. Most of these students were in remote locations, and access to Labster allowed them to not only have this opportunity to experiment and in their ecology course, but this also allowed Arizona State to provide more value for less and allowed them to scale their reallocation of resources. And ultimately, we've worked with them since then to build the first fully online accredited biology degree. So we're up to about 130 simulations, and these are some of the most common courses we have worked with. And you can see here everything from our intro level bio courses to the cellular and molecular biology, everything from those intro chem, gen chem courses to biochemistry and organic chemistry. We have quite a few disciplines that we can work with, and in fact, we have material that covers those competencies. Well, let's go back. jumping the gun here. So what I'd like to do now, I want to give you an idea of how this all comes together and how we're working with students. So the way we make this all happen is through the use of gamified case studies that have their own unique storyline. So students are able to link these abstract theories and techniques that they're learning about to the real world application. And I'm still using experimental data, and we have algorithms that allow students to change variables and observe outcomes, just like they would in a real life wet lab. The main difference being, of course, as I'm sure you just saw, we can do things that we wouldn't normally, or hopefully we're not doing in a wet lab. So from being able to blow things up and learn from productive failure, blow our lab up, not yours, to allowing students to learn from cellular and molecular visualizations. Gamification in general allows for inquiry-based learning and helps students really grasp that contextual piece. Each simulation takes along 30 to 45 minutes and covers the material that's typically covered in 1 to 2 lectures and 1 lab practical session. And we have multiple choice questions embedded throughout that serve not only as an assessment tool and show you if the students completed the activity you've assigned, but they also give you as the instructor insight into where any of those knowledge gaps might be, and how your students are doing both as a cohort and individually. And we do link with most major LMSs, so hopefully making your lives a little bit easier. It's one less thing for you to grade. So what I'd like to do now, I'm going to walk you through what this looks like on a more in-depth scale. So as instructors, obviously you want to make sure you're looking at the proper content alignment. So what you're looking at now, this is the faculty resource page. This is the trial access we're able to give you to explore a bit further and dive into the content in more depth. So if you're scrolling through our offerings, you'll see that these are organized by subject area. There's quite a bit here. For the purpose of today, I'm going to focus on microbiology, and within microbiology, we can see a few things. First off, the core simulations. These are the more popular simulations that are used in microbiology courses. Related simulations, these are simulations that might fit depending on the structure of your particular course. We realize each course is unique. You can also download a PDF summary that includes all of the simulations for this subject area, as well as their learning objectives and the techniques for each lab. I find this extremely helpful if you're sharing this with colleagues who maybe weren't able to join us today. This is the 1-pager, multi-pager, 6-pager, that will give you insight into what exactly would fit into a microbiology course. The textbook, the little textbook emoji next to the simulation, refers to a more theory-based simulation, as opposed to the beaker here, like this one next to the biosafety simulation. That refers to a more technique-based simulation. So that is a really holistic way for you to get a picture of what might fit into a microbiology course. That being said, we do have a more interactive way for you to do that. And so I'm going to click, I clicked on the microbiology, the gram stain, and we're going to see a few things here. We can, of course, download a PDF of those multiple choice questions I told you about. We can also play the simulation and read the theory that the simulation is based off of. And this is incredibly helpful, not only for you instructors to see what types of subject areas are covered in the simulation, what the content looks like, but students have access to these theory pages as well. So if they need to review, if they just want to look back on things, and it's kind of like Labster's taking notes for them. Toggling back here though, you can also see the techniques for each lab, the learning objectives, and a bit of background on the storyline and the mission. One of my favorite things that we can do is actually play a video of someone from Labster going through the simulation. So I've turned the sound off. I really just want to highlight a few different areas here and talk you through them. So each simulation starts off with a bit of orientation to not only Labster as a resource, but also to what you're going to be doing in the lab. The lab pad, which is up on the screen now, it's kind of like home base. This is where you'll answer those multiple choice questions. It's where you will be able to toggle between the theory and the mission. So it's important you know what that looks like. And where's my screen? There we go. So beyond, let me size that. Okay. So beyond the introduction, once you enter the meat and potatoes of the simulation, most simulations start off with a bit of background introducing you not only to the concept as a whole, but what you're going to be doing in this specific storyline. In this one, we're working with a patient who is suspected of having meningitis. The simulation starts off with us learning a bit more about the central nervous system and identifying some structures in the central nervous system on the diagram up here on the screen to help us better understand how we can work with cerebrospinal fluid and what that entails. So once we get back to the wet lab, we're going to be putting on our lab coat. We're adhering to all the safety protocols because that's important. Your students are going to need to know this. And we will have about 15 simulated minutes to wait for that cerebrospinal fluid sample to get back to us. During that time, we're actually going to go and have a conversation with Hans C. Graham, the creator of the Graham stain. He's going to be giving us a bit of background on why the Graham stain is important. We learned that the Graham stain was actually developed to help visualize bacteria in mammalian tissues. And as you can see, we're going to the theory. That's something that's really helpful about our simulations. If you're unsure of something, like we were just unsure about what the two groups of bacteria we were going to be looking at are, we went back to the theory and saw that in fact it was gram positive and gram negative. The joys of being in a virtual simulation, well, one of them is that we can actually go and manipulate and build molecules and cells and bacteria. And once the lab pad is down, we'll actually be able to do that. So the holo table is where we can build our gram negative and gram positive bacteria to really get a deeper understanding of what these look like. And from here, going into, we know we're going to be doing some gram staining, but really becoming familiar with that process is something we're able to do through a fun little game where we are, forward, where we're actually going through and choosing which actions we're taking when during this procedure. So before we're let loose in the lab, it's a bit more background. We're going through really mastering this before we go ahead and proceed over to the lab bench. And so I know that one bacteria is pink and one turns purple, but I don't really know why. And we have the ability to really go outside the box, sort of like the magic school bus, if you will, and get a deeper understanding of why that is through these visualizations. So that's what's happening now. We're able to really delve in and figure out why one's pink, why one's purple, and what that looks like. And then we can proceed to the lab bench. So this is where, well, a little further. This is where we are beginning to work with the centrifuge. We have our cerebrospinal fluid sample, and we are going to put this in the centrifuge. Normally, this is a process that would take 15 minutes. However, you can see the timestamp over on the lab pad here. The joy of being virtual, we can speed that up so we don't have to wait 15 minutes. And once we have that ready, we take it over to the biosafety cabinet to create our slides. So we're going over to the biosafety cabinet. We're working with the inoculation loop. Just like you would in a real life wet lab, you have to use a new one each time you're going from gram-negative to the gram-positive control. This red button in the back here that you see, that's how you reset the lab bench. So students can do these experiments as many times as they like, which is helpful. So then from there, we're going to go back to the lab bench and go over the results that we found. And ultimately, the bacteria for meningitis was found in the sample that we took from the patient. So at the conclusion of the simulation, we are going to communicate that with the hospital so they can get the situation under control and hopefully help this person feel better. All right. So moving forward, how does this all work and why? There are a couple of studies which really help us understand this. On the left, we have our first publication from Nature Biotechnology. This study showed improvements in both learning outcomes and knowledge retention with the implementation of Labster at the Technical University of Denmark. And the study showed a 76% increase in knowledge for the group that was using Labster's virtual lab compared to the group that learned the same material through a lecture. We then wanted to study how Labster could be used to flip the classroom, like I'm sure so many of you are familiar with. So for the second section, we assessed the impact of learning using Labster in combination with a traditional lecture. The result was 101 increase in learning outcomes compared to traditional teaching alone. And then on the right-hand side, we have CSU Northridge, which had decided to move one of their intro bio courses totally online. They had over 2,000 students going through the course per year. And before Labster, they had an 80% pass rate. After Labster, they were able to increase that to 95%, meaning they were able to help an additional 300 students pass the course. And so how does this all come together and how does it work? We have the ability to work with you and identify which simulations are going to fit into the course that you're looking at Labster for. So we have a team here that takes what you need your students to come away from the course learning and maps it to our available content so you can get that holistic picture of what exactly fits into your course. I know this is a stressful time. Many things are changing. Let us do the heavy lifting for you. And then beyond that, it's as easy as giving Labster your stamp of approval and deciding that, you know, the competencies that map to your course are going to be a fit. And then we work with your IT team to import that into your learning management system and get that started either directly through your LMS. We integrate with that into the course shell, or through, if you choose to not move forward with an LMS integration, we also have an internal LMS. You'll still be able to see all the learning outcomes. Main difference being you'll just have to export the grades and then import them into your LMS. And now pricing. So we have a couple of different options that that will fit variety of needs. The first one, full access. This is the most popular option where students, it's $99 per student per semester, gives access to our entire simulation catalog. Through this option, you'll have an LMS integration, chat support, as well as a dedicated customer success manager. Starter access is a bit pared down, $49 per student per semester, up to 8 simulations, so there is a limit there, and no LMS integration with that option. And then institution access. We realize that bringing courses online, especially now for fall, is often a institution initiative. So we do have the capability to work with you, and cost there could be as low as $2 to $20 per student. And so before I leave you in closing or open it up to questions, I want to summarize real quick. So Labster is going to benefit your students in many different ways, especially now where we are having to adapt to, you know, the new normal. And from having students complete realistic simulations and in situations where maybe they're not able to get to a wet lab, or you're having to rotate some students in and out of the wet lab, to providing real life examples of why these techniques and concepts are important. The impact we can have on your students is profound, and we'd love to help any way that we can. We know this is a difficult time for many. After we're done today, I'm going to open it up to questions in a moment. I do just want to note that our sales representatives will be reaching out to you after our time today to answer any questions we didn't get to and provide pricing if that's something you'd be interested in learning more about. And with that, let me check the question box to see what questions we have. Dashboard audio webcam. Here we go. Okay. Some virtual lab companies aren't able to support Brightspace. Can you? We absolutely can support Brightspace, Crystal. D2L Brightspace is one of the LMSs we can support. And then, can I run a trial of one of your biotech labs? Absolutely. So after this, after we're done today, I will make sure that the customers, the sales rep for your area reaches out to you and is able to sign you up for that access. We've got quite a bit of biotech content, so I think you're going to like what you see. Thank you. All right, anything else? Please enter your questions. I'd love to answer them. We have about 8 minutes left, so feel free to fire away. All right. We've been in business as a company since 2013. So about 8 years now, founded in Denmark. Like I said, we opened up a Boston office in, gosh, 2016 or 2017. I can't even remember. So it's been a fun experience. It's been a wild ride. I've been here since we opened up in Boston. No problem. All right. Any other questions? Now would be the time to answer them. How many are there on the webinar today? It looks like there's about 14 attendees. Sure, Grace, it looks like you are, I've got the first piece of your message. I'm in Africa. Welcome, we're glad you could join us. It's always cool to see who from around the globe is joining us. How does institution access work? Institution access is typically something that is done for the entire, well, it is something that's done for the entire institution. We work with your full-time enrollment and provide all students access to all of our simulations, which has the benefit of giving you the flexibility to you know, implement as many courses as you'd like. So there's a bit of flexibility there. Does that answer your question, Catherine? All right, awesome, great. My dog, she wants to jump in. Sorry about that. So the full-time enrollment, the full-time enrollment refers to the enrollment of full-time students at the university. And is cost negotiable? Cost is negotiable. A sales rep will be reaching out to you after we're done here today to discuss cost and in more detail. Part-time students can have access. The institution access just it's a cost based off of the full-time enrollment. Part-time students can have access. We realize, there's varying levels of students that will need access, but for your specific institution, Crystal, I think it would be, this is the more specific questions that you're asking might be better answered by a rep in your area that can give you a more customized number for you to, okay. Thank you. Do instructors have access to look at all simulations? Yes, that's a great question. You will, once again, a sales rep will be reaching out to you. You'll have access to that faculty resource page that I showed you. So you can walk through the simulations. You'll have access to all of our content, and that will give you an idea of what you can expect, Labster content to look like. Oh yeah, that's definitely before purchasing. We want to make sure that the content's a fit. Yeah. Okay. And Grace, thank you so much for putting your contact information in here. So glad to hear that you would like to use Labster. I will have Grace. I'll definitely have your sales rep reach out to you to give you some more info about how we can make that happen. Awesome. Well, it seems like there's a lot of interest here. So I really appreciate everyone's time and interest in learning something new. Like I said before, a sales rep will be in touch to answer questions and give you a more exact view on pricing, looking at your enrollment and the specific situation that you need access for. Oh, Philip. When will you have another class? I think you're referring to webinars, Philip, is that correct? The webinar like we had today? Okay. The webinars are held every Wednesday. And so feel free to, next Wednesday, there'll be another one for you to join if you would like to. And I don't see any other questions coming through. Any other questions here? Oh. Wonderful. Grace, glad to hear that you're hoping to join next week. I think once your rep reaches out to you, they'll be able to answer some questions and get you some more customized pricing. Institutional means individual colleges or whole system. Joseph, your question's a great one. You asked institutional means individual colleges or the whole system, both. We can work with either an entire university system with several campuses or just one single university. It depends on, what your needs are. And Philip. You absolutely can get access to this. So we've recorded our time today, and it will be sent out following our meeting. So when this wraps up, you'll get a recording, and if not, it will be on our website. I understand cost is an issue in some cases. We do have, I think, the main concern here, the purpose of today was to give you an overview of the content and how Labster can work with any given course. For more customized pricing, I'm going to defer to your regional rep, and they will get in touch with you to discuss what that looks like. All right, so it's about 1:30. I think we're good to wrap up. Oh, so if nope, no minimum number of students per class. Then Catherine, will the reps send us a link to the faculty resource page? Yes, absolutely. That's something that they will be sending out. All right, so thank you for your time today, everyone. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you come through and have more personalized conversations. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Have a great week.